Hey guys, Alessio, hope you're well. It appears that insiders or major big investors are piling into one specific stock. So we're going to dig into this chart you're seeing here, and we're going to examine, again from a technical perspective, whether this particular stock here has bottomed and why this particular stock chart could be interesting, especially as mentioned, there are several big investors who are buying this particular stock. Do they know something, and what do the charts tell us? All right guys, join me. All right guys, welcome back. So in a few minutes, I want to discuss with you this particular stock chart and what it potentially means. Before I do that though, let me just explain to you where I am. As you probably can guess, I'm not in London, I'm in Penzance. Penzance is in a region of England called Cornwall. I've never been here before, by the way, in Penzance. Anyway, let's take a walk here by this beautiful sea here and talk about this particular stock, which is quite interesting. And the reason why it's interesting is, according to several articles, Warren Buffett, who, as I'm sure you know, is one of the greatest investors in the world, he is now buying this particular stock in a major way. According to an article from Forbes, Warren Buffett has put in other words, invested $1.6 billion of his own money into this particular stock. Now, what is this particular stock? It's called United Health Group, or UNH, the symbol. All right, guys, let me just quickly mention, my good friend and trader Charlie Burton and I are doing an online educational course on trading and technical analysis. The link to get the early bird discount on the course is now available for you here. So just go to the link, it's in the description as well. Now, United Health Group, or UNH, is in the health insurance and healthcare sector. Now, of course, we're not going to examine this particular stock from a fundamentals perspective, but more from a technical perspective. But of course, knowing that big players like Warren Buffett are buying this particular stock is actually quite interesting. Now, let me make this very clear. This video here is by no means a recommendation to buy or sell any particular stock or market. This video is purely for educational purposes. So all we're going to do is examine this particular chart, and then we can make our own minds about it from a technical perspective. So what we can see here is that UNH, or United Health Group, the price here, as we can see, after it made a high, it then dropped quite sharply, as we can see, very sharp, very deep drop and decline into some key support levels. Okay, now by support levels, as we know, we're talking about a likely floor in the market. Of course, there's no such thing as a literal floor in the market, but a level, a key support level where often the market holds itself, where often the market holds that region and then sees a bounce. So you can see this particular stock, UNH, dropped from that high very sharply into a region of support. In fact, we have several support levels here. So we can see UNH dropped firstly into this trend line support, as you can see on that line. So that line goes back on this chart, and you can see it dropped to that level and approximately held this level and bounced. Also, it came down to the 61.8% golden ratio retracement level of that previous rally. And if you look at this monthly chart, this particular stock, UNH, dropped very close to the 200 monthly average. That's the 200 simple moving average on the monthly charts. Now, it came very close to it. Didn't touch it exactly, but it came very close to it. So it's often a region of support as well. So there are several support levels that the price here has dropped down to. Plus, we can see on this particular time frame, we have several oversold conditions. For example, oversold on the acceleration extremes. And also, when the price dropped on the daily time frame, we had a positive divergence. So notice we made a lower low on the price, but we made a higher low on the MACD. So yes, we can make a case that with a high degree of probability, it seems that this stock either has bottomed or is trying to form a bottom. Of course, we need to see how this recent pullback drop that is occurring in this particular stock and also in the stock market, how that will play out. So it's still not very clear whether this particular drop we're seeing in the stock is just a pullback or a correction, or whether it might go and make lower lows. That's still not very clear. But let me just put it like this. We can see on the weekly chart that the MACD on the weekly time frame has crossed over in a positive direction. That's a good sign. Now, of course, not every crossover on the weekly time frame is going to, result in a bottom or in a bullish direction. It doesn't work that way. But when you combine a bullish crossover on the weekly time frame with several other factors, again, as we discussed, the oversold conditions, with the drop into support levels like the trend line, and also the 61.8% golden ratio retracement, and the monthly chart, as we saw, the moving average, combining all those factors with the weekly crossover in the MACD, that's a very bullish sign in my view. But personally for me to be convinced that UNH here has bottomed, what needs to happen in my personal point of view is it, first of all, needs to stay above that low that it made there, the most recent low that occurred in the stock, and take out the most recent high in an impulsive way. So before I can say with a high degree of probability that UNH has bottomed. Personally, I'm going to play it more cautious, and I'm going to wait until the price here on UNH can get above the most recent high that occurred. That most recent high you can see there on the chart. Okay, so I need UNH here to rally impulsively and move above or close above that most recent high or resistance that you see there on the chart. And until UNH does that, I cannot say with a high degree of probability that UNH has bottomed. Of course, that's playing it more conservatively, more cautiously. So if those things play out, if we see a nice rally and a move above their recent resistance with the MACD staying positive, then yeah, that would be a strong positive indication that this stock has likely bottomed and moving into an uptrend. And that would mean we might see a move perhaps back to the prior highs. And of course, the stop loss or the invalidation point would be the recent lows or whatever low that was formed before it takes out the most recent resistance. Anyway, guys, that's really what I have here on the charts. For more detailed analysis, the stock markets, gold and Bitcoin, make sure you go ahead and check out the member videos. And if you're not a member, you can join on the link you see right there. So from here in Penzance in Cornwall, thank you very much indeed, guys. Bye for now.